thank you for joining us here today at the Axtell Park building. Before we get started, my name is Deanne Conrad. I'm the Community Relations Supervisor for the school district, and I see lots of familiar faces, so thanks to all of you who've been coming to our Gold Card events and those who are also new. Anyone here for the first time? Yay! Wonderful. So Gary, I know Gary because he did some work for us over at the Joe Foss building, and that program now is housed here at Axtell Park, so I can only imagine he's coming to check up on the former program that he advised.
Did they take it to the Foss building, sell it down?
It has been sold, yes. So it's owned by a private person. I think there was an intent that this person was going to use for it. I'm not sure that panned out. So at this point, really not in our purview anymore from the Sioux Falls School District, but it has been sold to an independent buyer. And Anne?
Yeah.
This is your first?
Very first.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us. We are always looking for new members, so please share the information with your friends and relatives. And hey, it's a cheap little gift. If you're sending a card to someone and you want to send an application for a gold card, it's free, right? That's wonderful. You can share the love and encourage your friends and neighbors to participate in these activities as well. So thanks to all of you for being here today. We have the opportunity to take you through today and show you the various programs that are housed in this building. In 2013, we moved over many programs that were scattered throughout the district under one roof here at Axtell Park. Previously, as many of you may know, this served as a middle school. And when we opened George McGovern Middle School, then those students now attend, the students who originally attended here now attend George McGovern. So that opened up this fantastic facility to bring all of the programs that were scattered about in our community under one roof for a little bit more efficiency and also a little bit more care for those students who need additional supports to be successful in the school. Just want to point out this area that we are in. It was done a couple of years before we made that transition and change. But this wonderful auditorium here was redone, I want to say in 2010 or 2011. And while it's not used on a regular basis by the students who attend here in the typical sense that an auditorium would be used in, our Eugene Field A+ Arts School, they don't have an auditorium. And if you know of the productions that they put on every spring, they are fantastically done. Lots of props, lots of costumes, and they needed a space to call their own. So in the spring of the year, Eugene Field A+ Elementary takes over this space and uses this auditorium for their performances. So we are maximizing all of the space that we have available in the Sioux Falls School District, and sometimes crossing Minnesota Avenue and getting the kids from Eugene Field over here so that they have a fantastic space to do their presentations and their drama productions. So it really is a great opportunity if you haven't seen a production that they've put on. Think of the littlest learners that we have up to 5th grade, and they've done, what did they do last year? I'm trying to think of what last year was. What, say again?
Peter Pan.
Peter Pan last year, yes.
And they flew.
Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Lion King, that was fantastic.
Ariel, the underwater one.
Mermaid, Little Mermaid. So if you can think of any of those wonderful productions that professionals often do and bring to the Washington Pavilion, our young elementary students at Eugene Field also do a fantastic job with those productions. and they are housed here in this building. So we're grateful to continue to use Axtell Park at its best ways throughout the school district, and thankful again that you're all able to join us here today. So we're going to get started and introduce you first to Tyler Enkelson, and he is in charge of the Joe Foss program, and it's the learning that students who maybe have been behind on their credits, it's the program that allows them to catch up on their credits in a short period of time. And so Tyler's going to come down and share a bit with you. It's actually the first time I've ever met him as well. I've emailed him back and forth, but it's the first time I've met him as well. So he's new to the building this year, but certainly brings his expertise to this program. So Tyler, we'll have you come down and greet our wonderful guests here with the gold card.
Good morning. So I oversee the Joe Foss program, which is a portion of this building. It's broken into several different pods, and my program primarily deals with students that are 16. They could technically go until they age out at 21 in the state of South Dakota for high school. So most of our students come from us for a variety of different issues, but the main concern when we get students is usually attendance. With attendance, then they're deficient in credits. So usually that's something to catch up, and sometimes the goal is for our students to go back to their home school once they get caught up. Sometimes they stay with us and they can perhaps graduate early, otherwise just get back on track and just graduate with their normal cohort. They are still associated with their home school, so they still do graduate with their home school. So if they come from Lincoln or Washington or Roosevelt, that's still their home school. They can still partake in the activities at that school. So whether that's activities with sporting events or prom or walking at graduation, they still can do all of those things at that home school. They're just housed here for their school. Our day is a little different than a typical high school. We're only here we have 2 blocks throughout the day, and they're 4-hour blocks. So there's a first session that goes from 7:30 to 11:30, and then there's an afternoon session that goes 12 to 4. And they get a choice of which session they want to go to unless that session is full. And the attendance is taken through us, and that gets sent through their home school. So it'd be the same if they were absent at Roosevelt, they get a robocall from us saying that they were absent here. So I'm in constant communication with that home school, with the administrators there, the counselors, the success coordinators, social workers. We're all on the same page to try to create an environment of success for the students here, or maybe it didn't work out at their home school for whatever reason that may be. There's not a particular reason I would say that people come to Joe Foss. I grew up in Sioux Falls and it seemed to have a different stigma at some point, but now it's a variety of reasons. We have just as many students that are taking upper science and math classes as we do that are in foundation classes. So it's just a wide range of students. The maximum load of students that we have at Joe Foss is 326. We do also house the ELL program for the district, which is for students 16 to 21. Once they freshly come to our country or they're not eligible to be immersed at the home school, they'll come to us. Sometimes they come with 0 credits, sometimes they come with credits from their country, or sometimes they come from Washington or Roosevelt and they're just deficient in credits, and this is a way that they have a smaller setting to try to catch up and earn a high school diploma. They follow the same regulations as our other students so that we can keep them until they're 21 or until they graduate. So a lot of our ELL students are older as they come over, so we get a lot of the students in the district that just come from Sioux Falls and they're 17 or 18 and maybe haven't done a lot of traditional schooling. So they'll come to our ELL program and we're able to house them and help them with different support with the language and also earn high school credits so that they can get credits towards graduation. We partner with some other different things in the community, whether that's LSS or this last week USF started a program as well for some different English language learners, and we try to partner with some of those programs so they can get additional support when it comes to English. The main goal when they're here is typically to do credit so that they can earn credit towards graduation. So sometimes the immersion factor isn't always the number one priority, so we try to push other things so they can still learn that language as they're doing their credits and learning both at the same time, which is challenging for a lot of our students that come from other countries, but they're eager to learn and they're really excited. A lot of them stay full day. Some of our President's Academy is what it's called. They'll stay for both sessions so that they can catch up and get as much English as they can while they're here. our program in a nutshell. I mean, is there questions or concerns about what we do?
Well, when you said that there's a 7 to 7:30 to 11:30, do they have to stick at the same one, like that, come every day at 7:30, or can they come in the afternoon or a different program?
No, it's the same thing. They could do the same thing in either session. Typically, they stick with the same session because there's a reason that they chose that session.
Working or something.
Yep, so if something comes up and they have an appointment or their work schedule changes or something like that and they let us know and we know, they'll give us a call. They can come to that afternoon or vice versa, come to the morning session if needed, if that works out for that day. So
I would think there'd be more in the afternoon, but maybe that's not true.
Right now, no. Our morning session is full typically because a lot of our students work, so they want the afternoon available to have a creative work schedule. So that a lot of our students do work 40 hours, so they can get done at 11:30 and they can start work at 1 or whatever. So a lot of our students do work, so our afternoon's probably more open right now than our morning session. I know it's full, and there's a waiting list for that session.
So when you do have maps, you said 301 section.
Yep. Yep, and that'd be divided in between the two sessions then, so 165, 170 per session would be kind of the goal to kind of equal that out, so it's not 200 in one session and not as much in the second.
Well, it is interesting to know because I think that perception too of this bad behaviors over here.
Yeah. I mean, that's typically, like when I grew up, that's what it was for. So, I mean, I would say, it's not always the case. I mean, we have students, whether it's pregnancies, whether it's addiction, whether it's social anxiety, whether it's just not having to be able to deal with a large setting in a classroom or a big school or hallways. I mean, there's all sorts of reasons why students come to Jill Foss. So it isn't just one particular reason anymore, like I think it once was. A little 10, 15 years ago, it was a little different, I think, how the layout was and who came.
The GED program at East Tech is more court mandated, right, or something? Or
it depends. I mean, that'll be kind of the last resort for the district. So once they've gone through other alternative programs, that would be an option where they can still get a diploma then. So that'd be something typically after they come through Joe Foss that this didn't work out for them and they're still deficient in credits, that could be an option for them to still obtain a diploma.
So are they working a computer-based program?
Oh, yes. Yep. So not everything's computer-based. It's primarily computer-based programming. So there's platforms that they use. This year we started something with some more teacher-led classes so that part of the thing with the district was a lot of our students come with 3 or 4 years of math left. They don't do the math in the high schools. That's one thing that they get behind and it ends up being a little bit more work. So we're teacher-leading all of our math courses this year. And then a few random courses like speech has to be teacher-led and stuff like that. So that would just be pulled. They'd get pulled. Like our math course schedule this year is each session has random times for algebra and geometry, and they get pulled for an hour, and they'd actually go to math class then, and they would do geometry for an hour with a math teacher, and then they go back to their Chromebook and their online platform, and they can continue to work on their offline geometry stuff or their other classes that are open. So our students typically will have 2 or 3 classes open at a time on the online platform, just so they don't get overwhelmed and they're not making a % progress in 5 different classes or 6 different classes. That allows them the focus time to be able to do a course, complete it, and then our registrar will open up a new course so they can continue to make progress. Yes?
The age of kids that you're working with now, there aren't any kids that are just coming into high school?
Typically not.
I mean, you said 16, so it could be a kid that's struggled for the first 2 years or whatever.
Yep, it could be, and I have a
But
couple
you don't
of...
just have a freshman coming into your program.
Usually not. They usually try to go at other options before they send a Joe Foss, so if they can try to work something out on that homeschool, whether it's a program there that's a smaller setting for them. We do have a few. I've never seen anyone under the age of 15 in my program. I have a couple of 15-year-olds right now, but that's usually pretty rare. Most of our students are 16 or older. It's not impossible for them to come at 14. It's an option, but usually the homeschool will look at other options before they come here to make sure if they can see if something else
What might
works
be an
out.
option those kids can do at their homeschool?
The what?
What kind of options do they have at the homeschool?
Sometimes there's, like Washington has like a pride room, which is kind of similar to what we do, or Roosevelt has like a reading recovery program. So those type of programs where they can try to catch up in different credits and do different things prior to coming here, if maybe there's another option that they can exhaust at the homeschool before coming here. Because there is a limited amount of slots here, so the schools kind of choose wisely on who comes and who doesn't come, and the attendance here and enrollments here. Because each homeschool will have the same amount of number of students that can come here.
I suppose it really helps with the graduation rate has increased now. They were saying that these programs have helped with that.
It does help. I mean, you're still going to have students that are unmotivated at that point, but if you can try to find a a nicer option of 4 hours a day, which is nice. They can work at their own pace. They still have a teacher for guidance or to facilitate stuff that they need. I mean, last year, just in the Joe Foss program, if you don't count the President's Academy, there's, I think, 151 graduates. And the President's Academy, which is the ELL program, had, I think, 24 graduates from it just in that year. So it does definitely help those students that maybe wouldn't have reached that point at a homeschool, perhaps.
How many staff do you currently have?
We have 10 certified teachers, registrar, school counselor, administrative assistant, and then we're looking at adding an EA or two.
Just 10 teachers?
Yep, 10 teaching staff. So the teacher to student ratio is typically about 11 to 1. At times this year, if we were completely full in the first session, it was about 12 or 13 to 1.
Do you have, are most of the students in Sioux Falls high students or UK students? Do you have a kind of, I know here's they're just starting that, like an alternative program out there. Do you get students from there's
We get several calls, but they do have to be enrolled in the Sioux Falls School District to utilize Joe Foss. So it's a referral in the Sioux Falls School District. They have to be associated with a homeschool, and that's how they get referred to Joe Foss. Yep.
What's ELL versus ESL?
Just new name, right?
It is. It's the same thing. So English language learner, then English as a second language.
Okay.
Literature will use kind of, they interchange both of those words at times. It kind of depends on what you're reading. Any other questions?
The two programs are completely separate?
They're housed in the same
kids,
area.
They're in the same,
Yep.
at the same time with the same teacher?
They can be, yep. So, and some of those students that are learning the language will be partake in some regular ed classes as well, just for some immersion. So they're not always taking sheltered content classes at that point. So if they're at a high enough level when it comes to language acquisition, we want to push them into a normal classroom. So sometimes they might have half their day with a regular ed teacher and regular ed students just so they can get immersed better.
Are they doing computer-based too?
They are. It's more teacher-led in their room than it would be in any of the other areas of our building, just because they need a little bit more one-on-one instruction. So it's still, a lot of the stuff, curriculum's based online, but the teacher's leading, I would say, probably 75% of what they do.
How many different languages did it say? Dealt with here?
Well, at the beginning of the year, we had 21 different languages between our ELL students. So our ELL program right now houses 36 students. And some of them, the languages correspond with another, so it's just like a different village. It's similar to the language, but it's a different language
A
technically to
lot
them.
from Africa, Ethiopia, I mean that area? Or?
We have a lot of areas from there. We have a lot of like Latino, Hispanic too. I'd say that's probably our largest population. Guatemala. We have a large population from Guatemala in South America, and then the other population would be out of a variety of different countries within Africa.
In the district, we do a district demographic report, which will come out at the end of this month, and then compiling that information, the number of languages throughout the district is now at 89. So 21 represented here, that's a pretty significant number in the size of population we have here.
Yeah.
What kind of, one of the issues I had when I was at Joe Foss was attendance. I mentioned this, we're still battling that.
It's still the battle every day. Yep. That doesn't change. Our attendance fluctuates.
When a kid, when one of your students turns 18, you're able to, what do you do to try to retain those kids? Some of them aren't close to graduating yet, or maybe real close.
And some of them are really close, and then also undergone, they're at 19 and a half or 20 or even 21 credits, and sometimes we don't
Well,
get
since you don't have to worry about that until you turn 18, right? So it's like,
we try to.
Say it that way.
Yeah. I mean, technically, when it comes from the legal standpoint, we still try to connect with them as much as we can and try to get a hold of them as much as we can. A lot of times, we do have situations once they turn 18, numbers change, addresses change, and we never hear from them ever again.
I was involved when they changed that age from 16 to 18. In some cases, it did help. And I don't want to generalize, that's not fair either. I'm not sure that it made a big difference if you don't have the other foundational the skills you need.
It's a tough challenge for sure, because,
Yep.
I mean,
If you're gonna
statistically, it's
support
those.
the example.
But yeah, you said that they can go till 21, but you really have no
Yeah.
legal force after 18.
Yeah, there's really not, well, I mean, you can still take their attendance if they're still enrolled with their homeschool, so we'll continue that, and we can still send out a call and try to contact them, do home visits and those type of things, but there's really no way that we can make them come to school at that point. So it's a choice thing at that point, and usually once they turn 18, the homeschool has less amount of days that they can miss to stay on the roster then too.
I know they were talking about, you know, like, someone's supposed to be like walk on tour. The big thing is people moving, even with elementary kids, are you trying to go there to find them when their address has changed and go to a different apartment?
Yeah, we have a lot of mobility in the district, and in some cases, they're moving to a different apartment. In some cases, they're moving to different towns, and so keeping track of kids is difficult. When we're looking at attendance on the district perspective, we talk about building those habits early. So one of the challenges I know we've discussed is how do you get the parent of a kindergartner to understand that it's important to be in kindergarten every day. That if you just decide to stay home because it's snowing and you don't want to drive, your child to school or something along that line, that's developing a pattern. And it does start in the elementary years. So if they have a pattern already defined where I've missed 20 days of school this year, next year I might miss 22, and by the time they get to Tyler and his program, we've got a serious problem on our hands, because that's the behavior, the pattern that has been established. So, we focus a lot about attendance in the elementary schools because we're trying to build that understanding that you have to be there on a regular basis. If you're going to be successful, if you're going to graduate, then we need to start early as kindergarten, to help parents understand that it's not just a play date to go to kindergarten. Now we're there are standards and things that students have to know by the time they come out of kindergarten. If they don't know them, then we just compound the issue every single year.
I've seen some ads.
Yes.
That they've had attendance ads.
Yep.
So that was-
Yeah, we started that last year, an attendance campaign. It's called Every Student Every Day, Attendance Matters. And, the students that Tyler is working with, as he mentioned, they work 40 hours. Many of them work 40 hours. So, their attendance in school also trickles over to their attendance in the workforce as adults. And so we're trying to build those habits early and often so that kids understand that there's a responsibility and an accountability that goes along with attending school. And that's how you become a successful employee as well. Because if you don't show up for work, chances are you're not going to have a job for very long either. So we try to help kids understand that bridge between your attendance in school and attendance in the workforce as well.
Tyler, kids that are ELL, do you see that? I would think that they're the ones that really want to learn and are trying to be here. Do you think you see better attendance with those?
Our
people?
attendance rate in that program is much higher.
I would think so, because they're eager to learn.
They're usually typically between 15 and 20%, depending on the week, higher than our traditional students. But attendance would be the key. The reason our students are there is because they've missed so much school, they haven't done the classes. I mean, so it's not that they're not capable, they're all capable of doing the work. It's just they've missed so much school that they're so far behind that they don't have credits. So once they come, they can do all of the work that they choose to be here. So attendance is definitely the primary key to create a success in our environment.
So your staff virtually, what they do is just facilitate the computer learning in most cases, except for these couple of math classes. Is that what you're saying?
For the most part, they're all certified in all different areas, just like you would in a high school. So if someone has a question with a biology question, and let's say their advisor, the person that they actually sit with, isn't a biology person who doesn't know much about science, they'll go talk to the science teacher then and get help then. So they still have that direct instruction if needed.
So it's a question about their online learning.
It's primarily online facilitation for the teachers then at that point.
How often do they do the math classes outside?
Math classes is Monday through Thursday, and they're an hour long. And that'll allow them to get through Algebra 1, A and B, Geometry A and B, and then Algebra 2, A and B. So we do offer for all of those.
How many do you have in daycare?
Students that utilize the daycare, that's varied day by day, but right now, I think today I brought down 4 students that utilize the daycare. A lot of our students find family members or friends to watch for little or nothing, I think, and that's where most of them go, just because it's cheaper for them.
What's the day charge?
Oh, they charge.
Yep.
What do they charge?
Depends.
What is it?
It depends.
It doesn't
on
depend?
The family circumstance.
Sliding scale,
Yeah, scale.
right? Sliding scale.
Is that district staff too?
That is partnered through YES. So we have a staff member that comes here then each day and stays here, and then our students can utilize throughout the day as needed.
So you said there's like only 4 or something?
Right now, we have more students that have children than 4, but like today, I only walk down 4. Sometimes that's 6, sometimes that's 1, sometimes it's 0. It's kind of dependent on the student's schedule and whoever else they have at home, whoever that may be that would be helping with their child. So sometimes that's where they pick their session, is if they have someone at home to watch their child, because it's for free then, and bringing them here. Any other questions or concerns?
It's a good program.
It is.
Yeah.
Keep working.
Yeah.
I know it's frustrating. You know, the one thing if I may just for a second.
Yes, please, Erin.
Working down there with Joe Fox, and I remember the 3 years I was there, many days before I moved around like that in the building, but I would see kids come in, and some with kids, talk it out, but just to get there, that's what I was most impressed with. And I know they came from some tough situations. And I know when we had our graduation recognition, we didn't, there might have been 150 kids that year that earned their diploma the day before they showed up. And some parents came in blue jeans and a t-shirt, some came dressed like me, some came like you with a tie on, but almost every one of them, the parents and people that were part of the family, they were proud. And some of those kids were the first in their family that were blown. And that's the struggle, that you have to, it's battle. And that's why it's so important with these young kids, to get the parents, counsel them in understanding. You got to get there. And teach that responsibility. And we see all, that's the biggest challenge.
It is.
Be responsible. What concept, Be real.
Yeah.
But if you don't see that example, then how do you tear that out? And we can bust their buns all day in school and get that through their head, but if you don't have that reinforcement, or have seen that example, wow, it takes a pretty special kid or a pretty special someone to mentor them,
Even there.
figure that out. And this program here, under the leadership back there, that can make it happen. Keep working.
Somebody else in charge of like Flex and there's other programs here too?
So Erica oversees all of the other programs in the building then.
Come on down, Erica.
Okay. Deanne's going to leave me out here by myself. All right, well, I'm Erica Palladino, and lots of you I know, or I've seen before, so welcome to Axtell Park. I will give you just a little bit of background about myself. So this is my 21st year in the school district, and I taught for my first 14 years at the Juvenile Detention Center. I was the English teacher there, and then I coached volleyball at Lincoln High School for those 14 years. Many things changed in the juvenile justice system in the last 20 years, and so as things changed in the juvenile justice system, so did positions at the Juvenile Detention Center. So what had once been a program that had 3 teachers, 3 EAs, and a clerical was really shifted to having 1 teacher, and that teacher was me. And at that time, I had 2 young boys at home, so I was working part-time, and then I was coaching and teaching as well. So at the end of maybe my 14th year of coaching, I decided I'd done that since I'd been 17 years old. I was ready to be done, and then I decided I was just going to work full-time at the Juvenile Detention Center. And all of a sudden, a unique opportunity presented itself, or I presented myself to that opportunity, maybe is more realistic. And I went and saw some people at IPC, and I said, I really think that these programs could use something different, and I think I could be this leader that maybe you would be looking for. And so the problem was you needed to have your special ed degree. And I am an English major, and I have my master's in business, and I have a whole bunch of education classes, but I do not have my special education degree. So I had to get my special ed degree and my a second master's essentially in administration. I had 7.5 months to do that. So in 7.5 months, I took 36 credits, and here I am today. And I have the ability now to be what you would call, what looks like the principal of Axtell Park, but in true reality is called the senior coordinator of specialized programming. So I have a very different role in the district because I do get to run all of the programs opposite of Tyler's program at Axtell Park, but I'm also a part of the special ed supervisor coordinator team. So I essentially have 2 roles in the district. I do a whole bunch of district trainings. I train special ed teachers, I train specialists and facilitators. I also train everyone in my own building and run the principal role here. It's really a dual role position. We house about 200 students on the other side of the building from Tyler. I also supervise programs outside of this building. Some of the penitentiary, the Juvenile Detention Center, and the Arise program. So along with the programs that are here, I supervise those teachers and those students as well. But the programs that are here look a little different than Tyler's. So whereas Tyler's tends to be a credit recovery program and really an alternative pathway for students who are traditionally 16 to the age of 21, we have programs where students are placed due to their behavior. So our programs start in 6th grade and also run to the age of 21 when students can age out. We do see ourselves, which is different than in the past, as an alternative pathway, but students aren't necessarily well, that's not true. Some students are asking to come to Axtell Park, but there's a process in place for them to get here. So about half of our programs are accessible through your IEP. That means that IEP teams are meeting, and those IEP teams are looking at options for students who have exhausted all options in their traditional school. We essentially run Tier 3 and Tier 4 programs at Axtell Park. So when you think of Tier 1 interventions, those are all interventions that can occur in your traditional school. You might have a check and connect. You may have counselors. You may try to shrink the environment for your students so they don't have to walk from one end of the building to the other end. All sorts of things going on in traditional schools. Tyler mentioned R2. Roosevelt also has R3, which is really shrinking environments for students who struggle in big places. Washington has their own private. So administrators in the middles and highs have really worked hard to retain students inside their buildings. When those don't work for a student in special ed, and if it's disability that's driving that, then the IEP team will meet and potentially Axtell Park could become that student's placement. So that's half of our programs. The other half of our programs are placed by the superintendent. So the superintendent is looking at students whose behavior is truly not appropriate for that school, and those students are moving in through the regular ed side. So it doesn't mean that we don't have mixes of students, special ed and regular ed together. It's just that the way that they got to those programs looks significantly different. I just looked at some of our data from our data poll. Today, our attendance in this building on our side is about 87%. That is a huge attendance rate for this building. When we first took over these programs, traditionally we were at about 50 to 60%, if even that. So last year, I believe, out of our own cohort, we graduated 60% of the students that were here alone. That does not include any students that reintegrated back into their traditional school that also graduated successfully. So those numbers for us are really, that's what we look at. We have to be successful for our students in terms of academics. You will hear if you go to classrooms, you will see if you go to classrooms, teachers teaching. I think sometimes people are surprised by that, but 99% of the time our students are in class, they are learning. They can be very difficult students to teach, but they are learning every day, and those teachers are teaching at the same subjects, at the same tempo, and at the same pace that teachers in traditional buildings are teaching. The biggest difference is our teachers are teaching everything. So when you think about a traditional English teacher at Roosevelt, they may have a class load and they may be teaching English 1 and English 2. They may have 2 preps. Our English teachers are teaching every single class with regular ed, grades 6 through 12. So they have to know every single thing about that subject. So there may be a student in American Lit, there may be a student in accelerated language arts, there may be a student who is in a resource class, and there may be a student that's taking a traditional track. That one teacher has to teach all of those students in that one class period all of those different classes. That's our responsibility, so when that student goes back, they're exactly where they need to be when they go to traditional school. Over 50% of our students today are in reintegration to their home schools. That's a great number for us. Some days it's higher and some days it's lower. It just depends on the quarter that we're in, actually. So we're in first quarter and we've only known some of our students for 15 days. And we're already looking at reintegration into second quarter. So we will have meetings with those traditional schools. Students will start off generally with 1 or 2 periods. Some of our students by the end of Christmas will be back fully into their schools, and then we're intaking students all of the time. So there are traditional big intake times. So at the end of the year, moving into the beginning, I think we did an intake of about 30 students into our program from Bridges, which is the elementary behavioral program, and then we'll intake during the year from the traditional middle schools and high schools. And that is for all programs, both special ed and regular ed. Our programming is sectioned into different types of programs, so even if you're a student with a disability, it doesn't mean you always have the same disability as somebody else. So we're going to try to get you into a program that we believe is most appropriate for you. And as we kind of walk around the building, I'm not going to show you the whole building, but I can kind of tell you the programs that you're looking at and what type of student is traditionally in that program. That's a very brief overview. We also house the behavior teams, and behavior teams go out all over the district, and they are a tier 2 intervention, so they're intervening with students whose behavior is impacting their education in their traditional building. They will help track data, they will create a plan, they will work with the students team at that school to help implement that plan. They'll teach those teachers how to track data, and I think last year we worked with 350 students, and 13% of them ended up having to have an alternative placement. That was it. So there are about 200 to 265 students that were able to remain in their home school because of the behavior, or the service of that behavior team. And I supervise that as well. You guys have any questions? I mean, you asked Tyler a lot. I was impressed.
Could you just briefly describe those other programs that bring students? You talked about RISE, Bridges.
Yes. Yep. RISE and JDC and the penitentiary are obviously all placements that are done through the courts, right? So we don't really have the right as a district to place a student in those facilities, but we have to educate students in those facilities. So our district provides the teachers and the education for students who may be housed in facilities overnight, like the juvenile jail, and the RISE, which is a lower tier of an intervention for the court system. The penitentiary we educate because the law says if you're between the ages of 18 and 21 or 16 and 21, whatever age you are, you have the right to a special education if you are incarcerated. So we do provide special ed up at the pen.
How many students are in those particular programs?
Oh.
I suppose it varies.
That really varies. The pen does not have as many. I would say maybe 6 to 20 a year, and that sounds like a big variation, but it really truly depends on the year that we're in. I try to count in my head of vows that we do, so maybe we have like 3 or 4 vows this year. We could have students who are in compliance already. So maybe 6 to 20. At the juvenile detention center, that really varies. I think our ADM there is about 30 a month, and those students are turning over pretty consistently. So the 30 today will not be the same 30 in November. And then a RISE turns over both JDC and a RISE turn over real quickly. So I would say they house at the most 15, and right now they're staffed for about 8.
Where is the RISE at?
RISE is in the LSS building, also where Summit Oaks Day and Residential Program is. And then Summit Oaks, we have slots for about 20 day students there, and then there are 40 residential slots. Those students mix in to educate. But the Sioux Falls School District, we can place students through their IEP into one of those 20 slots if we believe they really need services for that emotional disability. We get some wraparound counseling, a lot of therapy, that kind of thing in that program, as well as traditional school.
I don't think the public has any idea.
I would agree with you.
And what about hospitalized patients? Is that a different?
Yep.
Hospitalized kids?
Yes. And when you mean hospitalized, do you mean for like a physical disability?
Yeah, or
That's different. So that would depend on, we have some homebound services that would be offered, and there's certain criteria that you go through the district to do that with. We also, which now that leads me to a different thing, we also have a different program that's provided through special ed, which is a homeschool program. So I can give you an example. The Department of Corrections may release a student because they've reached maximum program benefit, okay? To us, that sounds like they're successful. To me, I know that that is not the case, right? I know that they were not successful in that program, which means the student has been away from their family for potentially 2 years. They haven't worked their program successfully in a very, very high intensity facility. So the solution at this time has been to send them back to public school. Because public school, you don't say no, right? We educate everybody all of the time. So what we have been able to utilize and hire is what we call a homeschool or a homebound instructor who will work with those students to kind of set an expectation to get them in academically, and then we've transitioned those students into our own programs here. So I can think of 3 that we did that with. That transition was unbelievably successful. These are students who are traditionally very ill and have either been pulled out by parents or have not completed successfully. So we do have another program running here where we're trying to link in to teachers that we have in our own building to support those students so they have a successful transition.
So I think Erica is going to take us now on a tour. This will be an opportunity to maybe, get up, stretch your legs. If you need another cup of coffee, or you didn't grab a dessert, you can do that now. Use the restroom, and then we'll
That will just be right outside here.
They've had a full time every year.
Okay, you guys, we're gonna go ahead and start. What I'm gonna show you first is actually kind of different. I'm gonna take you around this corner here. Axtell Park started what we call the Attic at Axtell, and it is a program that serves anybody in the Sioux Falls community. It's essentially a goodwill, but it comes out of Axtell Park. So our own students can work this program. If we have students who aren't capable of working out in the community, at the time they will organize, they will sort, they will deliver, they will do the monetary part, which is like really so negligible that we can just buy hangers with what we create out of that. But if we ever have any parents who need any clothes, if we have kids who need clothes, they know, and social workers know, that they can come to the Attic at Axtell to get that information or to get anything that they need. And oftentimes we don't charge anything, and we take everything in donations. So I'm going to show you that, and then the picture that you're going to see on the right hand side of the wall was painted by our Odyssey students, and they're our toughest crew of kids probably in this building, but they have created the Axtell Lion in their art class. So you'll see that as you go on the right hand side, and the attic will be on your left. So I'll take you right down here. Yep. So you'll go to that art class Thursday. The art teacher is phenomenal. And they have an hour and a half of art a day, which is the only program in this district that does it that way, but she teaches art history, and then she does application in the same hour and a half, and then she rotates groups.
Give them time to make something.
Yep, and then we get to teach them the art history with the actual application. So this was kind of a fresco piece of work that they completed last year. So we have students that sometimes have interviews for work, or they'll come here and say, well, I got a job at Taco Bell and I can only have black shoes, but they can't afford black shoes or an extra pair of shoes. So we have shoes, shoe racks over there that they can pick from. And like I said, we have all different kinds of things for all different types of families. We also run the only fresh food pantry in the state. And what we discovered was that our students who were in the backpack program, we would see this little line of canned goods from Axtell to the bus stop, because many of them don't have can openers, many of them don't have a microwave, so we were giving them these things to eat that they couldn't eat. So So we piloted with Feeding America, and it's a lot of work on our side because our staff unloads, I think, about 400 pallets of food every Wednesday, and that food is all gone by that Monday. So our students get to come and they access fresh fruit, fresh vegetables, and I'll show you that as well. And then we have it all set up for them so they can come access it for their families. One of the funnest stories I know is when Dr. Maher came here, one of our students took him through the pantry and he said, oh, you know, how many people do you take food for every week? And she said 16. And he said, oh, 6? And she said, no, I have 16 people in my family that I take food for or food home for every weekend. So they can access that all week long. But then we kind of go giveaway on the day before that we know it will spoil or not be good. So they can use that. And we also use that in our fax class if we have leftovers. So this is the attic at Axtell. If you can certainly feel free to spread the word. We will have an open house. This year it's finally up and running, and Heidi Costello, who is one of our community facilitators, has done all of this. She's done an incredible job promoting, getting it organized. This is a huge deal. And I gave her the assignment and said, I want it up in a month. So, and she did it. She was great at this. So.
You said it's free for
it's free,
for
yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do you take donations?
We do. So there's a box out there, and we'll come and get it from you, or you can drop it off, one of those two. So you just call us and let us know. And it runs off a blog site because we can't just have people coming in and out. So social workers will tell us, or you can access a blog site that you can pick things, and we'll send them to you.
So what's the age you need most help?
Right now, I'm not sure, but last time I checked, it was kind of like 5 to 8-year-old boys was what we were looking for. A boutique just closed down somewhere in the state. We got all their stuff, so it was some really nice stuff for working moms and for kind of that older teenage set to go to interviews in. Down the hallway, you're going to find our library. We got a $60,000 grant to build this library. Before we came here, our students had no libraries. They had no books. They had no nothing. They were all in different areas of town. So this library has been a huge deal for us. Our kids access it all the time. Fresh food pantries on your left. If you walked all the way in, you would see big refrigerators and coolers. That's where they get their fresh fruit and vegetables. This is our library. This is our librarian, Becky Heikela. So she sees students on and off throughout the day. And our students utilize all of these types of books. They do it for research. We also have a maker spaces area where students can work hands-on with all sorts of different things. Becky's really been a huge part of continuing that movement and also integrating that into what students are doing in their daily curriculum. So we can kind of cross over from the library to what the teachers are teaching in the classroom. Like I said, this is a really big deal to our students, that they had a library, they had a place to check out books. And they come down, Becky, we run classes, they come down.
Yep, we run classes once a week, usually with classes that are scheduled, and then they come in, like if they need books in between, they'll just stop down.
Yep. All right. So a lot of our pods look very similar. So this will look very similar to the upstairs. We're not going to go upstairs, we're just going to go downstairs. Okay? Because I think you'll get the idea of the building. Social studies and math are going to happen. Right in front of you. We got a crew come in and check out. The art room, so where the lion was painted, is this room right in here. And then there's an English room right here. Each of our programs has a specialist. That specialist essentially runs interference before anything comes to me. So we use the district discipline plan, but we are not going to use that in the same capacity that maybe Tim Hazel would use it over at Roosevelt. So we may have a student who swears at a teacher, who struggles in a class, and that student's going to stay with us for that day. We're just going to make it look different for him until he can apologize, until he can get his work done, and then he'll be back in the traditional room. Now, there are certain things that we don't tolerate: no drugs, no weapons, and if you're an adamant disrespect towards a teacher, then we're going to deal with that right away. But most of our kids, like I said, you're going to see them in class, you're going to see them learning. When they get frustrated, when the concepts get hard, that's when we probably start to see some of those behaviors. All of our students are searched before they come into their pod, though. No cell phones are allowed in this building.
Oh, and in your case, that's not too hard to enforce, I would think.
Nope, and I will say it's the only thing I OSS for straight out of the gate. And I thought I'd have to OSS every kid in this building on the first day we implemented that. And I really have had very few issues. They just put them in their locker and they don't even ask for them. So on your right-hand side is the Flex program. And also in the door that Deanne is standing in as part of the Flex program, we have separated our middle school and high school students, and they run different types of schedules, and then they have different types of interventions. Structure Teach is kind of mixed in with these guys. This is our oldest Structure Teach group, so grade 11 through the age of 21 is in this group right here. They just went to lunch. So you can see they have dogs, they have guinea pigs, they have animals, we have some therapy dogs in this school.
Where the dog went.
Yeah,
So our pod starts here, and then we have classrooms that go around the outside, and then the old library will work our way around and show you that area to them as people enter out. So these are individual classrooms for our students. Each classroom has 2 teachers in it if they're back here at any given time. And then with that, they have anywhere from 20 to 30 students dependent on that day. And if the attendance is how that looks. So each have their Chromebooks that are docked at their station and they come into work at that time. Our ELL room is right here, and this is where we have President's Academy and other students from other countries. This is where they come, so they have a little bit more assistance than a typical classroom. So they have a lot more guided things. They'll have more direct instruction versus just the online component. They still do work off of their computer for the most part, but it's going to be a little bit more one-on-one instruction as they walk through those different programs, the different classes that they're doing. Then we have another classroom, and then as we come out the big loop around, the old library is broken into 3 different areas, where an area for some maybe combined areas maybe not as ideal in a classroom, or if they're too close to someone right next to a table, they have a little bit more space and privacy out here as they do work. And that's kind of the end of the tour of Joe Foss. That's all there really is to it. We have 4 classrooms in the main area here, and that houses all